What world is Gareth Southgate living in? It's absolutely embarrassing. Last night he's come out and talked about Phil Foden not playing centrally for Man City. It's absolutely ridiculous. Does James Maddison play left wing for Spurs? He's been the best player in the league. Harry Maguire doesn't even play for Man United. He played more minutes against Ukraine than he's played all season for his club. And Southgate comes out with these weird, contradictory, contrasting opinions amidst a really poor result, amidst a really poor World Cup campaign. It's absolutely embarrassing. I'm fully Gareth Southgate out, and in this video we're going to break down why I think the comments allude to far bigger issues for Gareth Southgate at England, and just why my patience is completely burnt out with him. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. Let's just pick out some of the comments and why they're some of the most ridiculous, cowardly, plastic kind of comments I've ever heard in my life. He doesn't play centrally for his club, so presumably there's a reason for that, said the Three Lions boss. Now, my initial reaction is, I'm a balanced person. Obviously, Phil Foden doesn't play 38 games a season centrally for Man City. That's the reality. Ilkay Gundogan had a legacy season last season, playing probably in the same position where Phil Foden would want to play. Obviously, De Bruyne is there as well. We're talking about two players that are generational talents in their prime, that had the experience, the guile, and they were both in form and fitness in a position to get City towards the treble. England are not Man City. You can't have... Ilkay Gundogan isn't playing ahead of Phil Foden for England. Neither is Kevin De Bruyne. So when you make comparisons to club football, you have to be very careful, because England don't have the ability to choose De Bruyne, choose Ilkay Gundogan. The reason he doesn't play there for Man City is because two of the best midfielders of a generation are playing there ahead of him. And when he has played there for Man City, he's played there in some of the biggest games the club's ever seen, and some of the biggest games that will go down in English football history. I'm not trying to be over the top as a City fan, but we're talking about Phil Foden playing in midfield against the great Inter Milan, against an Inter Milan side that, guess what? They played a low block. At points, they played a back five. Inzaghi had them very, very resolute, powerful in midfield. And guess what? Phil Foden played in midfield for the injured De Bruyne, came on and was absolutely incredible. Even a couple of years ago, at the age of 20, he was dictating midfields against the likes of PSG when City got to the Champions League final and lost to Chelsea. So, can Phil Foden play in midfield? Yes. Does he play there enough for his club? Probably not, for what he'd like. But at international level, you're picking players that aren't always playing for their country. Maybe they've just had a transfer, it hasn't gone quite right. Maybe they've just had an injury for club level. So international football, you have to accept that there's a bit of an umbrella. Under this umbrella, there's a lot of contradictions. Phil Foden in midfield is the highest level midfielder we've got alongside Jude Bellingham. James Maddison's very close based on form, and obviously he played against Ukraine far left. So 1 minute Gareth Southgate saying that Phil Foden isn't trusted by Guardiola, who he calls the best coach in the world, to play centrally, and then another minute he's playing a player who's arguably played more centrally than Phil Foden in the last four weeks in the Premier League, plays him far left. Even Jude Bellingham, who's playing for Real Madrid, the biggest club in world football, he's playing down the middle, he's coming up with big goals, he's running between the lines. He was shifted left at one point. He was shifted left. It's absolutely embarrassing. And the reason it's embarrassing is not because I'm just a livid Phil Foden defender, Man City fan. It's not about that. It alludes to issues in Gareth Southgate's management of the squad, because these contradictions, Phil Foden will see these kind of little contradictions. James Maddison being shifted left, it will hinder the confidence in the manager. When we get to the tournament, you have to play your best 11. You know, Del Bosque was playing Cesc Fabregas as a false 9 at points. He didn't want to play there. He's not a false 9. He wasn't playing there for Barcelona or Arsenal when he went to Chelsea, but there was a reason for that when Spain won the World Cup. Sometimes, as an international manager, you have to just say, Phil Foden, you have to just sit there and say, hang on a second, Phil Foden is running midfield in the Champions League final. He's just won a treble. He's one of the most decorated English players of a generation already. He's 23 years old. How am I not excited enough as England manager to sit there and say, well, it's my last tournament. I'll stick Phil Foden in midfield. Right, maybe Bellingham and Foden is too much at points. Maybe we'll swap out Foden as a substitute, but he comes on centrally. Maybe that's an issue that he needs to address, the kind of cover behind him, because I do agree there's a lack of cover behind Phil Foden and Jude Bellingham. So I don't think you can always have Foden and Bellingham. But against Ukraine, How are we not having two attacking midfielders? Our midfield was so flat. And he actually cites these really weird excuses for not playing Phil Foden. He actually talks about things like pressing lanes and the pressing angles against Ukraine, saying that Ukraine have this really tidy midfield. If you don't understand pressing angles, he says, then you don't have the flow of the game. You don't get the flow of the game. What world are we living in? What world are we living in? Phil Foden, whatever you say about it, maybe you think he's not the best passer of the ball in midfield. Fine, that's your opinion. Maybe you don't think he scores enough goals. That would be an invalid opinion, but an opinion nonetheless. The one thing you cannot say about Phil Foden is he doesn't understand the flow of the game. He works the hardest working side in European football, the most successful side in European football. He wouldn't play for Guardiola. He's played hundreds of times for Guardiola. He wouldn't play for Guardiola if he didn't work hard off the ball. That's one. But then understanding pressing angles. This City side are some of the best pressers of the ball ever seen in terms of how hard they work. Phil Foden knows the flow of the game. But mark my words, you can have loads of opinions about maybe his physicality. Maybe he's a bit too diminutive for England's midfield. That could be your opinion. But to sort of sit there and say in a press conference off the back of a dross, embarrassing 1-1 draw, that he doesn't understand the flow of the game. He's the most understanding of the flow of the game, maybe in European football. There's a reason Pep compared him to Lionel Messi. Again, I'm not saying he's that level, but he understands the flow of the game. He knows where to pick up space. He reads the game incredibly well. His weight of ball is unbelievable. He knows when to drive at a defender, when to lay it off. He knows where everyone is on the pitch. So these comments are massively a hindrance to Gareth Southgate. I think it's turning a lot more fans like myself away from believing in his campaign in Euro 2024. And it's not about me sitting in my armchair watching England and Germany in 2024. It's about the players. What kind of message does this contradictory message send to, someone like Raheem Sterling, who's so decorated, he's done so well for England, he's left at home. And then we watch Jordan Henderson, who's left serious football, he's left professional football essentially, in my opinion, to join Saudi Arabia. Fair enough, that's his responsibility to his family. He's playing against Ukraine. We can't break the Ukrainians down, and it's going to end up the same, where we're going to get into Euro 2024, and the players are going to be having this weird mixture of someone like James Ward-Prowse, who could end up being lifting a trophy with West Ham, or getting them into a European position, having an amazing season. He's left at home. Calvin Phillips, as much as I like the guy, respect the guy, barely playing for City, probably get loaned out in January. He'll get on the plane. Not James Ward-Prowse, for example. Phil Foden won't start the game. He might end up being four-time Premier League champion. So that message trickles down to the players, where we've got a manager that kind of bumbles his way along in the group, doesn't want to lose, is so uptight, it's so like that clenched fist, don't want to lose. And the fear of losing is so big that we'll get to the group games, we'll get past some random side in the group, we'll beat them, fine, and then the hard side in the group will draw, and then we'll get out of the group with another draw, a bit like Scotland in the Euro 2021 campaign, and we'll get to the round of 16, we'll have a nightmare draw against maybe even Germany, right? And these players, that one moment, this game, they'll have no confidence because of the results against Ukraine, because of the squad selection, because they think, well, Phil Foden should be playing this high-level game in his position. Maddison, all right, if it's not Phil Foden, Maddison should be playing in his naturalised position. Why is Jordan Henderson playing in this position when he's playing against a load of semi-pro amateurs and a few celebrity footballers? That's the reality. And then we're going to get smashed out the group. England have to win trophies. So all this narrative about Phil Foden is really endemic of a manager not understanding how to get the best out of his players, get them confident. 1,000,000% Phil Foden should be playing in midfield against Ukraine with Bellingham on the right, Declan Rice behind, and you work out a midfield where those three can press, stretch the midfield, cover ground. They work with Saka, who's a very defensive-minded winger, and then suddenly you've got this kind of, if it was Grealish, for example, if it is a midfielder tucked in, they all tuck in behind Harry Kane. You don't need two defensive midfielders all the time, especially against Ukraine. It's absolutely embarrassing. What can I say? I'm Gareth Southgate out. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you very, very soon.